This is you. You're standing directly in front of someone who is very clearly happy to see you. A little too happy. The kind of happy that instantly tells you one horrifying thing. You are absolutely supposed to know who this person is, and somehow, you do. Sort of. You know their face. You know their energy. You know they once told you something strangely personal, something like their dog had surgery, or they were thinking about quitting their job, or they hate tomatoes because of what they described as a deeply traumatic childhood incident. You remember all of that, crystal clear, but their name? Gone. Not tip of the tongue gone. No, this is worse. This has never existed in the first place gone. A perfectly polished blank space where a human name should be. And now begins the performance, the greatest acting role of your life. Hey, you. Not too enthusiastic, not too distant, just enough warmth to suggest familiarity, just enough vagueness to buy time. Your working memory is already juggling 6 things at once. Their face, their tone, whether this handshake lasted too long, whether you just blinked too aggressively. What to say next? And somewhere in that mental traffic jam sits one tiny name trying to survive. Okay, where do I know them from? Gym? Friend's birthday? Coworker's cousin? Why do I know what their kitchen looks like? Meanwhile, they're smiling, relaxed, clearly assuming you know exactly who they are. And now, the real game begins. You subtly angle your body toward the room, and not enough to look distracted, just enough to widen your chances. Because now you are no longer having a conversation. You are waiting for a miracle. Maybe someone else walks in. Maybe they say, "Oh, hey, Marcus, good to see you." Perfect. Saved. Maybe their phone rings. Maybe someone calls their name from across the room. Maybe literally anything happens. At this point, you would honestly accept a minor earthquake, a fire alarm, a ceiling tile falling, anything. Just enough chaos for a natural reveal. Because the real panic isn't forgetting. The real panic is the next 10 seconds. The improvisation, the social theater, the dry-mouthed mental gymnastics of trying to survive a conversation with someone whose entire identity is stored in your brain as laughs loudly, works in finance, maybe owns a golden retriever. And the weirdest part? This keeps happening. Not once, not twice, all the time. People think it means you don't care, that you're rude, absent, self-absorbed. But the truth is much stranger. And honestly, a little funnier. Because your brain was never bad at remembering people. It just decided their name was the least interesting thing about them. Meeting someone new for you is not a simple event. It's a full psychological obstacle course. They say, "Hi, I'm Daniel." And in that exact same moment, your mind is already somewhere else. Was that handshake weird? Am I smiling too hard? Do I look normal right now? Why am I suddenly aware of my own hands? The name arrives like a tiny package at the front door of your mind, and nobody is home to sign for it, because your brain is busy doing literally everything else. Reading tone, reading facial expression, trying to assess whether this person seems warm or intimidating, calculating what kind of social energy they expect from you, trying to think of something normal to say, trying not to look like you're trying to think of something normal to say, and somewhere in all that chaos, Daniel, one sound, floating, disconnected, no image, no emotional anchor, no story, no meaning, just a word with nowhere to land. So naturally, it dies on impact. Psychologists actually have a name for this, which is deeply comforting because it means this isn't just you being a socially malfunctioning raccoon. It's called the Baker-Baker paradox. Same word, completely different memory. Tell me someone is a baker and suddenly my brain has images. Bread, flour, burnt croissants, 4 a.m. alarm clocks, mild emotional damage. Tell me their surname is Baker, gone before it even lands. Same sound, completely different meaning. Apparently, my brain respects context and refuses labels. But this is where it gets worse. Sometimes, you do remember the name, just not in time. 2:17 in the morning, eyes suddenly open, pitch black room, and your brain casually whispers, Julian. Of course it was Julian. Fantastic. Brilliant. Thank you for that deeply useful contribution 6 hours after the interaction ended. During the actual conversation? Nothing. Pure white space? Later in bed? Suddenly Sherlock Holmes, and somehow the people whose names you forget are always the ones who remember yours perfectly. Full eye contact, warm smile. Hey, good to see you again. Which somehow feels less like a greeting and more like an accusation. And then comes the absolute worst version of all this, the group setting. Because forgetting one person's name is survivable, forgetting someone's name in front of other people, that's public theater. Now there are witnesses. Someone turns to you and says, "Oh, you two know each other, right?" And instantly your soul leaves your body. Because now the room expects proof, a name, a memory, a normal human response. Instead, what comes out is something horrifyingly vague. Yeah, of course, we go way back. Way back where? No idea. Mentally, you're now doing emergency reconstruction at the speed of light. Okay, think. Where was this? Who introduced us? Why do I know they hate olives? Why do I know their ex was named Chloe? Why do I still not know their actual name? And somehow, in the middle of all this, they start telling a story. A story you fully remember hearing before. You even remember where you were standing the first time they told it. You remember the lighting in the room. You remember someone dropping a glass halfway through. You remember exactly where you laughed. But the name? Still nowhere. At this point, it almost starts to feel absurd. Like your brain has developed a personal grudge against labels. It stores atmosphere like a film director. Faces, voices, energy, tiny emotional details. But the one thing society wants from you in that moment? Gone. And the irony is almost cruel, because people often walk away from talking to you feeling deeply understood. They feel listened to, seen, remembered. You'll ask about the thing they mentioned weeks ago, their sister, their dog, their job interview, and they'll think, wow, they really pay attention, which you do. You really do. Just apparently not during the opening credits. This is where it gets painfully personal. Because while they're introducing themselves, you're often not actually present. Not fully. Half of you is already in the future. Already rehearsing the next sentence. Already editing yourself in real time. Already asking, don't say anything weird. Don't interrupt. Don't overtalk. Please sound like a functioning adult. There's actually a psychological term for this too. The next in line effect, which is just a very professional way of saying your brain is already rehearsing what you're about to say next, instead of listening to what's being said right now. So while they're saying, "Hi, I'm Daniel," your mind is already somewhere between "don't sound weird" and "please say something normal for once." By the time the name arrives, you're mentally 3 seconds ahead. The conversation has already moved on inside your own head. And that's the cruel part, because you remember everything else. The way they laugh, the slight sadness in their voice, the way they pause before talking about their relationship, the exhaustion behind their smile. These things stay. These things matter to you, because your mind doesn't remember people as labels. It remembers them as emotional fingerprints. Sometimes you know exactly how someone makes a room feel. You know whether they speak faster when they're nervous. You know if something feels off. You know when they're pretending to be okay. But if someone suddenly asks, "So what was his name again?" your brain just opens a blank Word document. Cursor blinking, no thoughts, nothing. And that's the part people misunderstand. They think forgetting a name means forgetting the person. But for you, it's almost the opposite. Sometimes names are the first thing to go precisely because you were too busy noticing the rest. The humanity of them, the texture, the real stuff. So maybe this was never a memory problem. Maybe it was always a preoccupation problem. Your mind was never absent. It was overcrowded. You forgot the name, but not the person. And maybe that's the cruel joke of it all. Your brain kept everything human and dropped the label, which means maybe you were never bad with people, just bad with admin.